Welcome to the Create the Life You Want podcast, where we break down the journey of people just like you going from dream to ownership in business acquisitions, franchises, and startups. I'm your host, Jeremy Ames. Today's episode is brought to you ad-free by Guidant Financial. Guidant is America's leading company helping aspiring entrepreneurs use retirement funds to buy or start businesses. If you're committed to buying or starting a business, you can find out more about your funding options by going to www.guidantfinancial.com. That's Guidant financial.com. Now, let's get started with the show. Welcome, everyone, to the Create the Life You Want podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Ames, and today I am joined by Laura Bowers. And I'm excited to dig into Laura's story because Laura's done a couple things that are interesting. One, she has gone out on her own to start a consulting company, which we haven't heard a lot from on this podcast yet. So that's going to be an interesting journey. And second of all is finding out what she's consulting on, because it happens to be artificial intelligence. So Laura's going to tell us about how she's building a business before the robots take over the world. So Laura, welcome to the show.
Yes, or how to be nice to the robots so when they do take over, they're on your side.
Oh, yeah. I should probably stop talking so aggressively to ChatGPT when it doesn't give me what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I am. For whatever reason, I still say please and thank you to it, whether it matters or not. I'll find out someday.
You're smart. You'll probably be here longer than me. So, Laura, I think first, one of the things I'd like to dive into is just tell us what you were doing before you had this idea to become a business owner. Help paint the stage paint the picture for us of what your earlier career looked like so we can understand how that connects to this thing that you're doing now.
Yeah, I'm living out in the DC area. So I've been doing government contracting for many, many years, and I was doing IT project management over at the National Institutes of Health before I made this transition, but kind of got a little used to that job and wanted to see what else there was.
And did you get out before a bunch of people got cut there, or is that part of the process?
Yeah, no. So my original transition into entrepreneurship was in like 2003. So
Okay.
I was the post-COVID era of kind of returning back to normalcy and realizing that, my time, how I spent my time was something I was really thinking about a lot. And I was in the IT space. So during COVID, we were slammed. It was the busiest time of my career, supporting an agency transitioning into a telework model, because that wasn't nearly as common as it is today. I was able to do that a few years ago.
Got it. So shortly after COVID launched is when you went out on your own. So, but you mentioned 2003. So you worked for the government from 2003 till a little after 2020, or?
Up until 2003. Yeah. So from COVID to, mid 2003. And then that's when the project I was on kind of came to a natural conclusion, and I decided to take the leap of faith.
Got it. Do you mean 2023?
Yes.
Or can you travel back in time?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I was getting confused there for a second. So what did you do before you worked for the government? If that was sort of 2020 to 2023, what was your...
That was like even before then. I had been doing government contracting for like 15 years or something like that. So it's project management, IT project management for a while.
And then so this was just the latest version of that.
Yes.
With the Institute of Health. Okay. So you've been a project manager, you're working in IT. Did you always know you wanted to be a business owner? Like, help us understand what the pivot point was for you that finally...
Yeah, I've always had ideas, and I've always been the person that wanted to be at like the big kids table, if you will. So like even early in my career, I always wanted to be in the meetings where the like decisions were being made, and I would get really frustrated when I wasn't. Worked my career up to be at those tables and be part of those meetings and make the decisions, and that was fulfilling for a good while. And it was during COVID. I feel like everyone was impacted by their COVID experience pretty significantly, right? But I had two young children at the time. So when COVID started, my kids were like, I want to say 2 and 5. So they were really young at that point. I was working like crazy because we were ramping up on IT services. And I just kind of had this moment of like, is this what it's going to be? Like, is this the rest of my life? Like just kind of nonstop, go meetings. At that point, I was potty training. So it was like, I was running to the bathroom and then running back to Teams, like Teams conferencing. And I was just kind of like, I wanted more control over my time. So for me, the root of the desire was control over my schedule, control over my time, having that autonomy to build something that I was impacting, as opposed to uh, really I was working for somebody else's bottom line and somebody else's vision. So it was kind of like I started to feel um, pawn is a little dramatic, but like just kind of like a chess piece in somebody else's game. And I wanted to be kind of my own chess master.
Yeah, I think that kind of motivation resonates with a lot of people that will listen to this.
Mhm.
So, Laura, I'm curious. You said you had played around with other ideas in the past. What were some of those ideas you played around with the past, and what was it about 2023 where you finally decided, oh, this idea is the thing
Mhm.
I should finally do?
Yeah, I don't know that any of them were like good ideas, but it was just always kind of like, oh, I could open a store, and oh, I like just always that desire. I don't know that I ever had anything real concrete that I wanted to land on. Um, through the years kind of frustrations, so like from 2020 to 2023 is kind of where I went through this reckoning with myself. And during that process I signed up with a leadership program where I did 6 months of like life coaching essentially, where they kind of guide you through what you want your life to look like, what your actual values are, and like kind of are you doing the things that feed those values, right? And through that process, as it culminated, we actually met in Tanzania and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro together, which was like the coolest thing. I think still that it's just the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. So that whole experience of like forcing myself to think through things that feel really, really basic, like you want to think you know your values, but unless you sit down and really think through them, in my experience, I didn't. I had to actually go through that process and articulate what they were, um, and kind of realizing that I wasn't doing the actions in my day to day that would feed those values.
Tell us more about that. What was your realization? What did you believe before? And then after this experience of working through this leadership program and climbing
Mhm.
Mount Kilimanjaro, like what was different about your realization of who you were and why you're here?
Yeah, looking back, I think a lot of what I was doing was surface level and just going through the motions. Like I went to a town where you expected to go to college and you were expected to get a job, and then you were going to be happy about that job because you had health care, and like that was kind of the goal, right? That was the preconceived notion of the path of my life. And then when I kind of got to that point and it wasn't as fulfilling, um it just wasn't fulfilling. It was kind of like, okay, I'm good. I'm making a good living, and we have health and like that kind of stuff. uh but it was just there were no real values. It was me just kind of like playing out a pre-conscribed script. And then I just kind of realized like I have the rest of my life in front of me, and like it hit a plateau of, well, what am I going to do the rest of the time? This, like I've achieved what I was supposed to achieve. Yeah.
It's almost like when I hear you describe it, like you were this car that was on a track.
Hmm.
All of a sudden you woke up one day and realized like you've just been traveling sort of via your subconscious down this path and maybe wasn't consistent with what you really wanted. So,
I think that's fair. I think up until to this point of my life, it is what I wanted, right? I wanted to do the things I was supposed to do. And I had reached a senior level. I was a program manager. I had a large team. I was doing the decision making that I kind of had aspired to earlier in my career. So for a while, autopilot is kind of the right word, right? It was just like, we're just going to keep checking these boxes and go up the ladder. And then when I kind of got there was always higher to go on the ladder, so it's not like I was, CEO of like, I don't know, Google or whatever. But when I got high enough up, I kind of looked around and it's like, this is it. This is it. This is, it didn't feel like it was something I wanted to do the rest of my days.
got it. So it was less about questioning your prior path and more about just a pivot for you personally. You got to a point where your desires were changing.
Yeah, I think that's really fair to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So what changed? What did you want that was different than what you had built up to that point?
Yeah. Well, up to that point, I was commuting into work and my kids were young. So it wasn't, I was juggling for sure, but it was, I think a little bit more manageable. once COVID turned everything upside down, I did start to see the benefits of having more control over my schedule. So this, as I was going through kind of my own personal reckoning, this like logistics thing was happening in the world where I was like, okay, well, all this time on the road is having significant impact, and it's just I desired control over my time so much, and during that period, we were getting called into meetings pretty much nonstop, all hours of the day. It was early, it was late, if somebody had an outage, and it started to just kind of feel like I was just being ping-ponged around. And I'm like, I don't like this. I want to create something. I felt that I had enough skill and capability that I could create something that I could also have some more control over. Because at the end of the day, we all got to work, right? There's something we need to make an impact, have a living, but how could I do it in a way that was more complementary to the vision I was seeing moving forward and having more control over that time, and ultimately, being that more present parent and having that more, diverse lifestyle that isn't just work, work, work.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? You want more control of your time. You got a little taste of it, both
Mm-hmm.
the good and the bad, right? Not having to commute, but then also what happens when work can hit you at any hour of the day,
Yeah.
whether you want it to or not. So tell us a little bit more about some of the work you did on outlining your values and how that helped you think about connecting to a particular business idea or opportunity to move forward with.
Yeah, as I was going through it, I actually they're on my like monitor. I could see them. So the ones that I ended up with, it was we're supposed to do 3 to 5.
Okay.
So overachiever, I picked 5. I picked authenticity, strength, positivity, kindness, and levity. Um, and I kind of felt that I had and they're kind of in order, right? So I felt that I had more strength to do more, make more impact. Because I was starting to feel autopilot. Like it was becoming very apparent to me that I was just going through the motions, and the job I was doing at the time of like I was good at it, and it wasn't challenging. So I knew I wasn't really pushing myself. So I wanted to use that to create some positivity, and I like using my personality for levity, and wasn't able to fully do that in that environment. There was too many factors controlling what I needed to do, where I needed to be, how I needed to do things, and ultimately there were other decisions above me. Right there was guidance that I was implementing.
Tell us about levity. That's one that I have not heard on anyone else's list.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what that means to you.
Just bringing like joy almost into circumstances. Like I love a little bit of humor. I love a lot of inappropriate humor. So anything that can kind of bring a smile to a conversation, like life does not always have to be so serious. Like even when we are working, like we can laugh and smile, and we can, you know, have that levity even when it's serious or important.
Yeah, and that's not conducive with a government contracting job?
I mean, it's possible. Don't get me wrong. Me and my teammates, we had plenty of Teams chats that we probably wouldn't want to go public, but there was certainly, in the environment I was in, there was certainly a level of, I'm trying to pick the right word, but kind of just do as I say, a little bit of like big brothery, because I was a contractor, I was not a federal employee. So we were, obligated to the federal government to kind of follow orders.
Yeah, I'm hearing it was an environment where you couldn't fully be yourself or didn't feel like it was safe to fully be yourself. Am I misreading that?
It depends. I mean, like you could, but as soon as you kind of went in a direction they weren't comfortable with, you would correct course. So it's not like I will say I felt very free to make recommendations and speak freely, at least in my experience. But if what I was saying was not in alignment with what they wanted, it just quickly pivoted.
So tell us about, so you do this values work, you climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Is is it after that that you decide that you're ready to do something, and help us
Yeah,
connect?
it was. I climbed Kilimanjaro in the spring of 21, and that was kind of the beginning of okay, I can do
Okay.
crazy things that I never thought I could do. It was a real just lesson in kind of there are bigger adventures out there that await me. And just because I'm a mom with these kids doesn't mean that that's my sole identity, which I think a lot of women really kind of struggle with. You enter into motherhood and it's really hard to kind of see yourself in any other capacity. So just kind of going through that reckoning with myself of like, no, I am not just a mom. I'm so much more than that. I am their mom, and that's extremely valuable role that I play and cherish. But there was a me before them. There's going to be a me once they go to move out on their own. And I didn't really want to wait for them to grow up to like start having my own identity again. So that opened up the door to just accepting more adventures, and one of those included, taking the chance on a business.
Okay, so connect the dots for us between Kilimanjaro and take a jump into a new business.
Yeah, they're just kind of big spaced out dots because there's fear, right? There's definitely fear as you take these jumps. It wasn't like I got off the mountain and I was ready to jump.
Tell us about that, Laura. Tell us about what were the most prevalent fears for you, and
Yeah,
how did
it's the
you eventually work through them?
fear of failure because it's like you when you go out on your own. My business is a one woman show. It's just me. So I, consult with coaches and specialists and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's me. All the decisions are me. And if I fail or succeed, it's me. Whether I make money or not, like that, the financial fear was pretty big because I was in a stable position. So to go from having stable income to essentially no income was probably the scariest point of it.
It's
Mhm.
different than the fear of failure. Is that broader than financial failure? Is it also like, hey, what are people going to say about me, or do I have a career I can fall back on? Like, feel the
Yeah,
for us.
there was a certain point because I was starting to talk about it with friends, like as my contract end date was being realized, because my contract kind of got like extended, and it was, and that's part of the reason why it did take me the full kind of 2 years from when I started to think about this to leave. I was pretty loyal to the company I was with and wanting to finish the program out, especially since I was in a leadership role. I didn't want to like leave on any kind of bad terms. So I started talking about wanting to do my own thing. Um, and I had a lot of great support. I had a lot of peers that were like, oh, yeah, you should totally do that. You can, go for it. And that was very encouraging. And I can specifically remember one conversation I had along the way where I was talking to one of my colleagues about it. And I was like, I really think I'm going to give it a try. Like, if not now, when? Like, this is a good, it felt like the universe was giving me the timing, right? Or at least that's what I was telling myself. um, and I just had a moment where I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen is that I could fail. Like leading up to that, I was afraid of failing. And then at some point, I was able to reframe that and be like, that's like the worst thing that would happen is I would just fail and I would get a job and I could continue to build the business. And like it didn't have to be a home run right out the gate. Like that is actually an unreasonable expectation to think that I'm gonna take this leap and nail it. Um,
Walk us through that worst case scenario analysis you did. Did this just sort of magically happen one day, or does it slowly percolate over time for you to say, well, what is the worst that could happen? And then you start playing it out in your mind and say, oh, well, that's survivable.
Yeah, looking back, it definitely did feel like a switch. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure my brain and conversations were getting me to that point. But it does like I can pinpoint in my mind one particular conversation. So from that perspective, whatever was like leading me to that point, that was like okay, like get over yourself. Like so what if it's not successful. So what if it takes you longer than you think? And it has. Like I'm still trying to grow this business, right? So I think getting myself mentally prepared for that has really helped me deal with the reality of what it takes to build a business and how long that takes.
Was it just a conversation that triggered this for you, or is there some work you did thereafter to really get comfortable with what it was like?
Honestly, I think it was all the work I did up to that point because I had kind of already gone through the leadership program. I was already in a new mindset because there was like before I did Kilimanjaro and after I did Kilimanjaro, like it's a very definitive timeline in my life of like the type of person I was, um, or the mindset rather, the mindset that I had versus after. And possibilities were so much more open after that. So it was just kind of like all of that coming together and understanding. Like I did go through an exercise at one point of like what I wanted. Like if I could create my dream job, right? It was like what would it have? Um and it was a lot of it was the it really boiled down to control. Like if I'm going to be honest, it was like the control of meetings, the control of time, whether or not I worked a certain day. Like if my kids had something, would I easily be able to go to it? Would I have to commute? There was income thresholds and just kind of looking through like what would be ideal. And it became very clear that the career I was in was not fulfilling more. The potential had a lot more of what I wanted than what I was doing.
Yeah. It's interesting how it sounds like for you, Mount Kilimanjaro was an inflection point where
Yeah,
you proved to
it totally
yourself, oh,
was.
I can do hard things that I didn't think I could do before. So maybe this business thing isn't as big of a deal as I've been making it out to be.
Yeah. Plus, I was with a group of amazing people. Like, I had coaching support, and then there was also the group of people that was doing it with me, which we had like group sessions, and then we're all, friends now after the fact. So just even just leveling up my circle, if that makes sense, right? Like before then, I had a lot of similar wonderful people in my life, but getting into a group of people looking to expand is a different experience. And it was something that was expansive to be part of.
Yeah. And how many of those people were business owners or have become business owners as part of
Uh,
this?
a lot of them were either senior level positions or business owners. So my group there was I think 7 of us in that group. I have since integrated into that community and met a lot of different people that are affiliated with this program. But a lot of them are you'll see like senior leaders or high level executives, business owners, things like that. It's called Mountains and Marathons.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
chose the mountain as opposed to
I
the marathon?
did. Yeah, I have since attempted marathons. I don't like them, but their programs either culminate with climbing a mountain or completing a marathon as a group. So they do these really just kind of epic adventures all over the world where they'll bring together their cohorts, if you will. Um, and then we're able to stay connected through like they have a reunion community where we're able to stay connected and do other adventures with each other. So it's been something I've been able to continue to tap into and leverage that expansiveness.
Love it. So you climb Mount Kilimanjaro. The frost start to defrost this business ownership idea.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did it click for you what you wanted to do? When did you find that clarity and where did it come from?
Yeah, it clicked probably 6 months after I made the leap. so
Okay.
so when I first did it, the logical progression was to do project management consulting because that is what my career had been in. That was the easiest kind of like
Do your job, but do it for yourself.
exactly. So it was like that should be easy enough, right? um, so I took the leap and I started kind of building that out. But I discovered probably in about 3 months of that time, I started using AI a ton. I was an early adopter of ChatGPT because at that point it had been out less than a year. So I started using it for myself to help me like work web content and just all kinds of brainstorming, business planning, things that I was not doing in my day-to-day role prior to having my own business. So now I had to start thinking about all these other things. So I was using it a ton and I was like, it was a personal realization that this thing isn't going anywhere and this is going to be, it was already in the news as like AI is going to take over all this stuff in the next decade and blah, 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 blah. And I was seeing firsthand just how powerful it was. So I was like, this is what businesses are going to need help integrating. So then I started going down that wormhole. And that's when I pivoted into wanting to do the AI consulting to help small businesses kind of um, create capacity and productivity where it doesn't exist because so many small businesses don't have the resources that larger companies do.
Yeah. So tell us about that insight and that pivot because you made the jump and pretty safe jump, really. Now it's just a question of could you generate enough customers for what
Right.
you were doing? You already knew how to do the work. This is a little different, right? This is like the wild, wild west of nobody knows what they're doing and everyone's kind of figuring it out as they go. So this
Yeah.
clicks for you that there's this wave coming and that there's people who are going to have a need with it. What did you do at that point? Like, Okay,
So
you look at
the
motivation.
benefit of jumping on a bandwagon early is it's very easy to be an expert. Like I was starting to realize really quickly I knew more than most people about it because I was like listening to the podcasts and I was reading the news articles and I got into some training courses early on and very quickly when I was talking to people about it I was like, "Oh, I actually like know things other people don't." And that sounds kind of silly, but it's like you don't realize what you know until you're talking to someone who knows less than you. And I have the ability to consult. I have the ability to build rapport, and like those skills all came with the project management consulting. So really, it was just a transfer of, taking project management out and putting AI in. And at the end of the day, I actually don't see them to be that different, right? Like AI helps you be organized and productive, and project management helps you be AI. It helps you be organized and productive. So it was a like for me mentally, it was a pretty easy shift.
A pretty different customer.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because originally I was going to target kind of mid-sized businesses and help them do project management office implementations, like really put in a project management framework. And then I decided that really it would be more beneficial to help small team businesses at kind of like really a more lower level, more entry level consulting capacity. Because that was more aligning with my, uh, I guess, passion to help, right? Being able to make an impact. Um, so doing that definitely started to pivot where I was looking.
So change then. You got to go find a different customer. So what did you do?
Yeah. So I started doing some pro bono work. I was working with a massage clinic, helping them kind of create out a automated chatbot and doing some stuff just to kind of get the reps in. So that was a good start. And then was working on my social media presence for a while. Uh, and then I will say, unfortunately, funding became an issue. So I did also have to go back and get some traditional work, which has slowed me down. As I was starting to get my sea legs and really start to get going, I did need to make a financial decision that, sucked a little bit, but has given me the capacity to now continue doing both, albeit at a slower pace.
It's about that because I suspect that is a common issue that comes up for business owners, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have a way that you know you can pay the bills, but it's not where you see the future of the business going. So, how do you think about managing your time to
Yeah.
bring the cash in the door that you need, but also be moving toward a future that you think is more compelling?
It's absolutely a struggle because the financial stress is no joke, right? If you're all of a sudden kind of pressed and you see the bills coming, you don't necessarily see the income coming. So that stress did become overwhelming until I was able to rectify the situation. Once the financial stress was tabled and I could catch up on kind of whatever I was falling behind on, it did free up the mental space again to start thinking about the business and reframing it up as to how I wanted to communicate. Um, luckily or not, I'm willing to take time off my regular job to do to do my company, right? So the company still exists, right? It's not like that went away just because I had a shift where I was using my time. But as I need to, like I can do engagements, I can take a meeting, I can kind of I'm fortunate in that I have some flexibility with the job I have, as long as I manage that time ethically.
Got it. So, that's the clarity. So, you went back and got a full time or a part time job to solve
Mhm.
the hey, I need to take care of my financial needs. And
Yeah.
then you carved out some amount of time that you continue to invest in building out and expanding this business that you're starting.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just takes some discipline when, like, once the regular hours are over, making sure I put a little bit of effort into the business. And it's amazing what you can do on a cell phone. So when I'm running around between soccer practices and things like that, I'm, trying to be as business minded as I can in all that downtime, as opposed to, because what's the alternative? Being on social media and just scrolling mindlessly, or should I be putting my effort towards building something that can ultimately support me at a level um, that's beyond where I'm at even now?
So, talk to us more about any tidbits you have there because this is really the classic scenario of how you build your business as a sort of
Mhm.
side hustle, right? You've got a core job that pays your bills,
Yeah.
but you're trying to find these nooks and crannies in your life to push forward this other thing that you're hoping at some point is going to replace that income and then grow to be something bigger. So you gave one good tidbit. It's like, hey, there's a lot I can do on my phone. So there are these opportunities. I'm waiting in line at the grocery store. I'm going to get 5 minutes of work done. But what else has come up for you as things that have helped you?
Yeah. I am a little guilty of overdoing this, but I am really big at signing up for free webinars, like wherever I can get free information. Like I know they're always trying to upsell me. So I'm very aware that when I give someone my email, like whatever they're giving me for free is coming at, some kind of sales pitch. And some of those things I've gone on to purchase and have been valuable, but for the most part, I am willing to like do dishes and fold laundry while I'm listening to someone tell me something, the three tidbits for whatever. And even if I already know them, like maybe I get one tidbit instead of three. Just gaining that information from wherever I can is it's made me sharper. Like I've learned a lot in what I feel is a really short period of time by doing those kinds of things. Podcasts are another one. Like if you get into kind of the right genre of podcasts, like you can learn a ton from the different speakers that they come through, and that's a relatively easy way to get ideas. And then I use ChatGPT.
Yeah, GPT is amazing. Let's talk about ChatGPT from the standpoint of in your experience working with some of these small businesses,
Mm-hmm.
what do they miss about AI and where are like the simplest ways for them that they could be thinking about how to leverage AI to make their business better?
Yeah, I think that the struggle, or honestly, what I know the struggle is they just don't have time to learn it. They like it seems cool, but is a business owner going to sit around all day talking to a bot and be like, run through scenarios? So I think a lot of people have, played with these different AI tools and have, varying experiences with them. But there is a lot to be said for like garbage in, garbage out. So if you're asking it a dumb question, you're not necessarily getting an effective response. So there is something to be said for for prompt engineering. Like that's a legitimate a thing. A few things that like I'll tell people that have really limited experience. You can take any type of content. Like let's say it's something you even authored yourself. You could write something and then you can just copy it in there and be like, add emojis. Like just little things like that that now makes it way more social friendly, right? You can also take old content and then tell ChatGPT to model it, like model this voice and structure, but make it about this. So you can use your, especially for established businesses, like that's really valuable because they have branding associated with, or they may have like a newsletter structure that's already in place, and they can just be like, here's the format, give me this format with this content. And that's a huge, huge time saver that gets them to like, an 80-90% mark.
Yeah.
I would also share that if you treat these tools like they're an intern, but like an intern that can be effective, that's a good way of looking at it.
An intern that actually learns.
Yeah, well, like immediately. Like it's an intern that really just needs the clear instructions and they will come back with exactly what you asked for. With a human, you'll give them really clear instructions and you won't get what you want until the end of summer and then they have to move on. So the clearer you can be with your instructions, the faster you're going to get a result that is workable. And then the third thing I would say is like don't trust it either, right? There are biases that are embedded in the responses you're getting, and it can be faulty on citing things. So you can ask it to give its sources. You can tell it to validate its data, and it'll tell you where it's coming from, which you still want to be diligent about. But there's ways to make it work better for you.
Yeah. What's your number one single best trick when you think about your average small business owner of how to teach them to be a better prompt engineer?
Mm-hmm. I honestly talk to it pretty normally. Uh, Having the conversation, the first instruction you want to make as detailed as possible. So you really want to think like, what is everything I want this thing to know? And like you could kind of have a checklist of like what format, what tone, what type of content. Like there's things that you could check off to make sure that that instruction is included. And you can actually ask it. This is a pretty good tip. You could say like, what other information do you need from me to make this more complete? and it'll come back and it'll ask you the questions that you didn't think to give it the data for. So that's a huge time saver. If you do that right off the jump, like, I want this, what else do you need to know from me to make it perfect? And it'll ask and then generate the response.
One prompt I love to do with ChatGPT is ask me one question at a time to
Mm,
understand this enough to produce this outcome. Because otherwise, it spits out like 35 questions, and
that's
it's
a fair point.
for my brain.
That is a fair point.
Um, Talk to us about what has been the biggest surprise for you in making the jump into business ownership. So give us both the good surprises and the surprises you weren't expecting.
Yeah, I think the nicest surprise has been the like amount of confidence people have in me. Like, I was really surprised by the number of people that were like, "Oh yeah, of course, like this makes so much sense." Because like I didn't know it made sense for me to like take a leap of faith and open a business, but I had some people whose opinions I really value just randomly be like, "Oh no, like you're gonna do great," and hearing that was like, it was that warm fuzzy. It was like, okay, maybe I am onto something here if these people believe in me. Um, the hard surprises is just the amount of time things take. When before you make that leap, I thought within 90 days I'd be rocking and rolling. But at the 90-day mark, the truth is that in my story, at the 90-day mark, I was still changing what I wanted my business to be. So the reality of how long things can really take to pick up, or like to keep that consistency going, to make you that kind of presence in the market.
Well, there's two things, Laura. I know we just met, but there's two things I hear from you that give me optimism about your long-term ability to be successful.
Hmm.
One is that you are a learner,
Hmm.
right? You are
Yeah.
trying to identify what the problems are and what the things are you need to address, and go find resources and tools and ideas to think through how to do that better. And that's just a recipe for getting better over time. And the second thing, this is one I think a lot of new business owners miss. You're playing the long game.
Hmm.
Even the way you talk about it, it's I'm going to do what I have to do in the short run to keep the runway as long as the runway needs to be, but I'm not giving up on this thing. And so, with that mentality, it really just becomes a question of time. I think a lot of people take for granted that, oh, becoming a business owner is like, I need 90 days to do it, as opposed to recognizing that jumping into business ownership, it's a whole new set of skills and experience and knowledge you have to develop. And if you think back to when you first started your career and how many years it took you to build those relationships and those connections and learn those little things, it's like, yeah, I remember when I messed that thing up, and that's when I learned this lesson, and this is why I'm so good now at project management or whatever it is.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I had when I went back to full-time work, I had all the naysayers in my life go, "Oh, so you're done with that?
Yeah.
That like experiment?" I'm like, "No, like it's just gonna look different." Like it was um frustrating sometimes. They're like, "Oh, so that's done." I'm like, "No, no, like I'm not just like, what do you mean? Like, you just give up? No, you can't just give up. Like, that's how people fail. You fail when you give up. So just don't give up."
Yeah, I always found those people annoying, but they're also really useful because that FU fuel really is
Yeah.
powerful for keeping going on those moments when you are
Yeah.
struggling. What happens? Maybe you could talk about that, Laura, because I think that's a common issue that comes up with new business owners. Like, you just have moments where something goes bad in your business, you don't get that contract you were expecting, you
Hmm.
get this giant bill that you weren't looking for, and all of a sudden you question every life choice you've ever made in the last 30 years. So maybe tell us a story about one of those moments that happened for you, and how you made your way through it.
Yeah, I think the most pivotal one was when I really did have to decide to take on full-time work, because it was a pretty harsh realization that nothing was going to happen as fast as I wanted it to. Like, there was no hiding from the fact that was going to slow me down. So I was pretty down, like, at that point, because again, I was looking for it because I was under financial stress. So you've got the stress, and then you've got the realization that like you didn't hit the home run, and then like accepting that you didn't hit the home run, and then being like, it's okay that I didn't hit the home run. And like going through that evolution was not a one day process. That was, took a little bit of time to work through those different levels. Um, but like at the end of the day, I think that going through this journey, trying to do the business and honestly trying to do it all in some ways, it's made me realize that like nothing is that serious. Like there's nothing that can happen to me with this business that is gonna kill me. Right? Like I still am gonna wake up the next day and like the day might be a little bit harder. I might have to have a conversation I don't want to have, but like it all still continues on and it like nobody in my life actually cares that much. Like I'm trying to say this in a positive way. I don't know if it's coming across that way, but it's like all of the followers and all of the likes, it's like they don't care what your day to day looks like, right? Like,
Because you're still going to get up tomorrow and your kids are still going to love you.
yeah,
You're still a talented person that, regardless of whether your business fails, you're still going to be able to put food on the table and take care of the people that you need to take care of.
yeah. And when it gets real hard, you just drive DoorDash. Like there's always something you can do to like keep it going.
You laugh, but I have talked to clients who have had to do that, right? They
Yeah,
get
no,
into
I was doing that a little bit myself just to like because
yeah,
the cash flow, man, like doesn't pay great, but cash flow.
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of thinking time while you're driving around where you can,
Right, you can listen to podcasts and webinars.
and you can use ChatGPT's audio function, so you can still be working essentially.
That's true. Yeah, I mean the possibilities, like we're joking here, but the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Well, Laura, I'm curious. I know you're still really early in this journey, right? And trying to
Mhm.
move forward. But if someone were to come to you today and say, "Hey, I'm considering becoming a business owner. I'd love your, perspective or your best piece of advice on moving forward," what would you tell
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's go for it. Like even if it doesn't work, even if it is hard, you will learn something. You will be a different person on the other side of it. So I would encourage anyone to just like just jump, just jump, just jump, just go for it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. Um, and that hopefully that like shared permission to just learn as you go doesn't mean you want to be reckless. There are certainly things you can do to like mitigate risk and those kind of things, but if it's something like I know for me, if I had never taken this jump, I would still be on the ledge asking myself if I should take the jump, and I would spend the rest of my life wondering if I should take the jump. And like now I can kind of rest easy when all's said and done that I at least tried, right? Didn't doesn't The outcome doesn't matter.
them?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I would rather try and fail than not try it at all.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time. It's really compelling to listen to someone who's in the very early stages of the journey in the struggling part of this,
Mhm.
because I think that's something that gets glossed over when you look at social media posts and when you read people's books about buying a business or starting a business. I mean, the part that you are in is part of almost every single entrepreneur's journey that I know, which is the whatever you start with as a plan almost never ends up being where you end up from a plan. Like they're always wrong. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't spend time planning because there's learning that comes from that. But it's that ability to adapt and continue to learn with the long term goal in mind. And I'm excited for you about your long term goal because the need you're reflecting is one that I see all the time with business owners I'm talking to. Every one of them has this deep seated fear about how AI is going to displace their business and their industry, but they have not the technical know how or the
Mhm.
patience or the time to figure out how to use it. And it's, as much as promising as AI is, it's not as simple as just a random person off the street walks in and says, solve all the problems of my business. And then
Yep.
ChatGPT is like, here you go.
Yep. That's very true. Like you want to be responsible, ethical with it. Like you need to be aware of where it can get you in trouble. So there's definitely considerations that I think put businesses somewhat in like a paralysis of like, oh, what do I do with this now? Like my competitors are using it, so uh-oh.
Okay, so where can people find you?
hmm
For example, if they're a small business owner that is looking for support on the AI side, where can they find you? And what are a couple things, or maybe just a quick 30-second pitch on what you can help them?
Yeah, sure. So the easiest place to find me right now is LinkedIn. I'm under the PMO boss, still under my original
PMO
kind of
boss, huh?
billing of what I went out into the world with. So that's where the most current data will be. Um, the things that we like to talk to businesses about is try to understand what they're doing today, like well and not well. Like try to get that like, hey, what processes do you have that you're like crushing it on? And then what do you really see areas you want to improve? And usually within that discussion, we can find some pretty easy things to either enhance or automate the stuff that's working well. Because if they have an established process, it's not that hard to inject some AI into it to like superpower it. And then from there, look at kind of the holes. I've partnered with engineers as well. So when it gets to a point just beyond, I mean, there's ChatGPT, but you can also build custom GPTs for businesses for certain work processes. So when it starts to get to the point where intelligent workflows or system integrations need to connect, we can actually refer businesses to skilled engineers to make those things happen and make systems that never could talk start talking, which really can be a game changer for companies that have kind of like age systems or systems that they're super dependent on and they don't want to change to things. So that can be game changing for places.
Awesome. So they can find you at PMO Boss. Laura, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Create the Life You Want podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to future episodes by clicking the subscribe button, you know where. If you're an aspiring business owner, you may also want to subscribe to the Create the Life You Want newsletter for more inspiration and tips delivered to your inbox every week. You can find the link to that in the show notes, as well as on my personal website, jeremyames.com. If you've already decided you want to start or buy a business, consider exploring your financing options by heading to our sponsor's website at www.guidantfinancial.com. That's GUIDANT financial.com. See you in the next episode.